having
No.
fun. I'm just trying to ruin it all.
So, I don't know if you saw the email, but Eric is
Not able to attend, yes.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, are we ready? Call the meeting to order. It is August 15th, 2019, and it is 7:34 PM. Roll call, please.
Director Boyd?
Here.
Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
Director Harvey?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Marshall is not present.
There is no president's statement. I see no blue slips in front of me, but I see members of the audience. Oh, there's one. And so we have, okay, let me see, old business. For an item that is not on the agenda, our rate study. So, Mr. Diegas.
Okay.
Greg Diegas, Montara. I'm really here for the cookies, but I did want to ask about the water rate study, which was discussed a couple of meetings ago. I would like to be involved in reviewing the process, the assumptions, the calculations, any working meetings. Could somebody fill me in on what's happening with the rate study?
So far, it's happening behind the scenes. It's Alex and myself bouncing stuff off, and we plan on bringing something to the next board meeting, which is on September 5. Is that correct? And that is when we essentially say, okay, these are our ideas, and we'll bounce it off the board, and most likely there will then be committee work that starts happening.
Okay, good. Seeing no other blue slips or waving hands, there is no public hearing. We're moving on to the consent agenda, which is to approve the minutes for July 2nd and July 18th, 2019. Approve financial statements for June 2019. Approve the warrants for August 1st, 2019. And then the usual SAM flow report for June of 2019. The monthly review of current investment portfolio, connection permit applications received, monthly water production report. And for people who look at the monthly water production report, we only produce as much water as we need. So it goes up and down by the month, and it is not anything to do with our capability. It's a demand-based number. So it's higher in the summer, because we don't have people watering their lawns and so on, and it's lower in the winter, but it says nothing about our system capability. Rain report should be 0. Solar energy report, always good. Yeah, we haven't had any fog. And the monthly public agency retirement service report for May 2019.
It would be my pleasure to move for approval.
Be my pleasure to second that.
Oh my goodness, we are doing so
Although
well.
I would be more than pleased to defer to Jim if he.
No, Scott, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda has been approved. Moving on to old business, review and possible action concerning MWSD collections contract with Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side.
Thank you, Catherine. So this is a standing item that is supposed to be getting an update to the board about the collections contract every second meeting at the month. And this time the report is going to be very brief. Essentially, we reported at the last meeting that we provided, that we looked very closely at our scope of services that we actually needed. That said, I was on vacation, and Keishan followed then and was also a little longer on vacation after my return. So we're in the process of scheduling a meeting at which we continue talking about the collections contract, and then jointly look at the scope of services that we envision needing from SAM going forward. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I can say at this time about the report.
So, so when Kishan returns, then?
Keishan is back.
Kishan is back, so you do schedule meetings?
Yes,
Have you scheduled?
we're in the process of scheduling a meeting right now,
Okay.
and get together and talk about where we left it off.
Okay.
Okay, any more comments, questions? Moving on to new business, Director Lohman at the last California Special District Association meeting there was a presentation by Martha Poyatos from LAFCO. They are redoing the sphere of influence and the municipal service reviews, the format and perspectives and so on, and have asked every special district for input, but they need to have it by the end of the month, before September 5th. So I'd like to have this put on the agenda as an emergency item, and I would, so Rick can discuss it. And my recommendation is that MWSD form a committee to draft a response so that we are on record. And I suggest that we work with Barbara Dye from Granada, so that Granada can also have a good, strong response, because this is, this municipal service review is a very important thing for boundaries and spheres of influence and those kinds of things. At the last municipal service review, which I think was in 2003, something like that, the recommendation from the Martha Poyatos had been that Montara and Granada and Coast County Water District, or not Coast County Water District, and Half Moon Bay have separate spheres of influence. And Naomi Patridge, who was on LAFCO at the time, objected, and so we were not allowed our own sphere of influence. I believe this time, now that we are providing water connections and have our own sufficient and adequate supply of water, and the sewer issues are all worked out, I would suggest, and we have a population that doesn't want us to be part of Half Moon Bay nor of Coast County Water District. I think we need to make sure we have a voice in this so we can get our own sphere of influence and maintain our independence. So if we could have a motion to put it on the agenda. It needs a 2/3 vote,
Correct.
so we need 3 of us
So
to vote aye.
And
Scott moves, Rick seconds, all in favor? Aye.
if we could just, before, well, that was quick, in conjunction with the motion, the Brown Act just requires that you make a couple of findings to put it
okay.
as an emergency matter, and I thought I had my email.
We only
that
found
is-
out about it Tuesday night.
Thank you, and no one knew. Just want to
And
make sure we comply with the
read this
statute.
section.
That would be great.
none of
Thank
us
you,
knew
President.
anything about it. The motion, let me see. So I move that we add the following item to the agenda under new business. Review and possible action concerning LAFCO request for comments on draft municipal service review policy and draft sphere of influence policy for San Mateo Local Agency Formation Commission on the grounds that 1, Director Lohman became aware of this item after the agenda was posted. No one else at the district was aware of this item before the agenda was posted. And 3, the need to take action cannot wait because the district's responses are due before the next regular meeting. And
I amend my motion accordingly.
so motion by Scott and second by
Modified is fine.
Rick Lohman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we need a roll call vote?
Does it say roll call vote? Only if Eric was going to be on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All those
So-
opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
So
Thanks,
let's
Lon.
discuss this, and I say, I think a committee would be the best way to go about this.
If I may add that, I think we would all be happy to hear from the board members that aren't making it to the committee. If they have any comments, I'd appreciate them if they could send them to me.
Yes, and we sent you all Martha's letter.
Could I just ask, Rick, do we have any understanding why this has such a short fuse and why there was no heads up?
I wouldn't mind making several comments, actually, to sort of launch
Go for it.
the thoughts here. First of all, I asked when this was pushed at the last LAFCO meeting, it was announced. I asked, can we get copies of the old version so we can cross-reference and see what changed? The chair, who's the public rep, said, who's on the committee, said basically that they looked at the whole system and said it's all in pieces and chunks and irrelevant pieces, so they rewrote the entire documents.
They who?
They, this committee of LAFCO.
The San Mateo County LAFCO or the state
San Mateo
LAFCO?
County LAFCO, with the supplies just to us, rewrote it. For those who are interested and love to go look at stuff, both versions are online. You can look up the old version and the new versions for anybody in the public. This is pretty critical. I don't think, if you just sort of glance through it, it doesn't look like any mammoth changes have been made, but I got all kinds of highlights, but I just remember in here comments like combined districts that do 2 or more functions are better than single function districts. A sentence that I would like 100% disagree with right off the top. I don't think big is better. I don't think putting anything under the county is better. So I think this is critical that we or a committee look at this and possibly even identify 4 or 5 phrases that we might want eliminated from it,
Or 110.
or lots of them. As Catherine mentioned, every municipal service review, what's called an MSR, pushes for consolidation of whatever it's reviewing. I forgot the name of Joe's police department up in Daly City. Broadmoor. Every time they do a review, they say, stick Broadmoor in with Daly City.
And the folks in Broadmoor want nothing to do with Daly City. Daly City has been taking chunks of Broadmoor for decades, and people just get mad.
They showed up at the LAFCO meeting, and basically the polite version would be, keep your hands off my district. And
So Broadmoor's the gold standard.
the gold standard for always attempted to be consolidated and never being consolidated. Other versions of this, they tried to wipe out the Harbor District. It's back in functionality. They tried to wipe out the Mosquito Vector District. It's functioning well. They tried to combine the 2 healthcare districts, which are totally different. That all went away, so I think we have good support from the local special districts chapter and lots of history on not being consolidated. The comments I used to get from the special district chapter were things like, all the special districts are very, very proud of their financial records, their transparency, the work they do, and everything. And they say, compare this to any big municipal government.
Or the county.
And special districts always come out as being more efficient, better.
And far better than
serving.
cities.
So our goal as a board will probably be to watch for language that keeps pushing for consolidation, to keep our district, which does an amazing job, totally independent. That will be our goal.
Right, and this is what we're doing with this is editing the standards for review, and then when it comes to our MSR, we will be in a better position than if the old standards were in place.
To answer Scott's question specifically,
Yeah.
They announced that this was going on at the LAFCO meeting, and they said it was being sent out to everybody for comments in cities and counties and agencies, and I don't think they gave it enough time. This is a draft. The next LAFCO meeting, I think, is September. We will be discussing it. I don't think it would be finalized at that point. I think at a minimum, they would consolidate comments and send out maybe whatever you call the final draft for more comments and things like that.
Do we know of any regulatory requirements on necessary process and timeline, periods for review and comment?
They never mentioned anything like that.
I don't expect them
It
to.
was just, the whole process has been, our documents are ancient and they're convoluted. It's time to just clean up all the documents, so this was their cleanup.
Yeah, it's always,
And-
when you're new to something, I always throw the stick of dynamite
Yes.
in it. So I would strongly urge that we make a pretty stern statement about inappropriate timeline.
Would you and Rick like to be the committee?
I would love to, but I'm going on vacation for a couple of weeks.
So you're swamped?
Yeah, and so this
I'll
is
take notes, timeline comments.
this is an inappropriate timeline for something of such weight, especially if their notion is, oh, it's time to just throw it all out and, baby and the bathwater together.
Yeah.
There's so many metaphors we can use here, but I think, honestly, I think we should get on record
Mhm.
protesting the process from the get-go, because if there is a regulatory requirement on comment periods and appropriate timelines, then we want to get that in early. I want to embarrass them for doing something in such a hasty manner.
Greg, you had a comment?
Sorry, I didn't have a speaker slip because I didn't know this was
That's all right,
on the
I'll add
agenda.
it to this
Right. My request is that the minutes contain language or links sufficient so that we can go look this up
Okay.
afterwards. And a background comment has to do with accountability in government. When somebody does something like this, there has to be some demonstration of benefit, right, that exceeds cost. And more than that, that benefit should be auditable. And if audit shows that it fails, there should be some restitution for the harm caused. So, I'd like to put a hurdle there that they have to not only justify it, but guarantee that it will help and say what they're going to do if it doesn't help.
I would.
It's just a concept.
I would suggest, after your excellent letter in the review, that you pen another one about this.
Okay.
And suggest that people write to LAFCO with a public comment, because LAFCO is accountable to the public. It's a state agency, not a county agency. But it is there supposedly to look after the economy, transparency, and good works for the public. And so there is a state LAFCO, and you can get a lot of information from it, and Rick can forward you the documents from this one, and on nights when you can't sleep in the very near future, you can have some fun, or go back to sleep.
If I could just make a couple more comments. I've actually read the whole thing, but not word for word detail. I got a lot of highlights. A lot of it is simply a process. If you want to change your sphere of influence, you submit this document, it gets taught, blah, 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 and it's voted. And so probably 3/4 of the document is just how to, it's definitions of what MSR is, so it's kind of boilerplate. But I think what we need to investigate is, these little details where they say major districts are preferable to small districts, and a few of those, and that's what I would go after.
Well, and we should go after where they change may to shall,
Mhm.
or shall to may.
Mhm.
Those
So
words have meaning.
So, to follow on Greg's thought, I work in an environment where we write a lot of software. We've got a lot of it. And a lot of people rely on the software that we've already written, and then we write new software, and along the way, people point out, wow, some of the stuff that we've written it's getting kind of crufty.
Mhm.
Maybe we should throw it out.
Mhm.
Well, we have an approach to looking at that, which generally starts with why,
Mhm.
and show me how that's going to do any good. But the why question is really, first, show me the need.
Mhm.
And if they're not leading with tangible need, then it's exactly the kind of exercise that people complain about government for. It starting with observations about general qualities of some idyllic nirvana, government state has nothing to do with the real world. And demonstrating need, we can look at individual districts and how well they're performing. There are ways to look at that, and there are ways to demonstrate there may be some opportunity. But one thing that I know is that in general what we do typically is we don't throw away large bodies of our code. We may go in and we may examine it, we may touch it up. We may go in and do a really deep analysis and find, oh, this is making our product run slow. Or, oh, there's some bugs over here. And then what we do is we fix those things. We don't blow it up. Blowing it up, you don't know what you're going to get. It's going to take some time. It's going to be hugely disruptive. It's undoubtedly going to cost some money. And no one's going to guarantee you on the other side of it that they'll make you whole if it winds up costing you money.
No, they don't.
Nobody in business, nobody in government will ever make that guarantee. So what we've got to do is say, look, we have good reason to believe that we're serving our constituency well. We have ways to assess that. And unless you can demonstrate need, keep your hands off.
Yeah, this might be
And
the.
in a committee
kind of
that drops a bomb on the entirety of the county, clearly hasn't spent any time
Mhm.
with this agency. I'm confident they haven't spent time with the other agencies as well. People who don't know other people's business, there's generally a phrase we use about that, keep your nose out of my business.
Mhm.
But they haven't even bothered to stick their nose in yet.
Sure, if I can just throw a couple of their generic comments around this that people have been talking about. And originally this was set up for like every 5 years. Boom. Okay, well, they were immediately behind and will never catch up. There are talks about making it like every 7 years, and an even better philosophy for especially like cities. A lot of cities don't change much. You know, San Mateo, it grows a little bit, but their infrastructure, all the numbers, the stats in these 50-page documents don't really change much. So what they're looking at is a way to say, or look at some of these, because it's a pain to go through these processes, because you got to answer all these documents and it costs you a lot of money. The idea would be if an analysis shows that the city, or maybe even a district, really hasn't changed any, it's just doing the same thing, it's grown by 2%, skip the MSR. Or just give it a token, okay, everything looks about the same, and not make these agencies go through the pain of answering 10 million questions and stuff like that. So there's some tendency to streamline this process, not keep hammering people all the time, and just make it easier on people, so. And these are state laws.
One of the things that I suggest we do, there were 2 studies by the Little Hoover Commission on special districts. The first one said special districts should all be absorbed by the nearest city. The most recent Little Hoover Commission report says special districts are doing a pretty good job. They actually do what they're supposed to. They can only charge for what they do, and they don't spend their money on other silly things, because that's the law. And so special districts are a pretty good form of government. So one of the things I think we need to do is make sure and insist, I don't think we should do the work, but insist that this new MSR be in concert with the newest Little Hoover Commission report. So, do we have people who want to be on the committee?
Yeah, I'll be on the committee with you.
Okay, You guys get
I'll do
it.
it just because I'm on LAFCO.
Rick, please.
Yeah.
This one's, you got some passion in this one.
Okay.
Pippin,
I'm just doing a quick little search based on prompt by the comments. What's coming up, I can't read the San Mateo website because it's not phone
friendly.
friendly, but there's a number of references to the Courtesy Knox Hertzberg.
Cortese Knox Herzberg.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
2000, and establishes, it appears to establish some guidelines for this process.
That's-
Right.
It is the
But you
government
need
law.
to
So in
check
that-
the San Mateo County LAFCO site.
Right,
But it's-
that's
but
a
it's
state
been
thing,
re-
so I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
are there general guidelines that define the timelines for which these
Right,
need to
and that one
happen?
was just redone about 3 years ago. So the one from 2000 is outdated.
It's the name of the authors, but that's the LAFCO law.
Right.
So-
And Greg, if you are interested, or Rick and Jim, I can get you the name of the chair of the Little Hoover Commission. And
Sure, yeah.
you could call him.
What was the process on that? The first report came out, everybody submitted documents saying slamming them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then they came out with the revised.
They
document
revised it.
saying,
It took them
hey,
about 10 years to revise it,
Oh.
maybe more.
yeah, okay, that's fine,
Okay, good.
move on.
Well, thank you.
Jim and Rick,
for
thank
getting
you.
this to us. Appreciate that.
Yeah, this is important, and you're gonna be working, Jim, with Barbara Dye,
Sure.
because with Chuck being ill, I think things haven't been, and so I think it's important that Granada also put in a good, strong statement, and if you know folks in El Granada, you could encourage them to do so as well.
We could reach out to the Harbor District as well.
Yeah?
They will be submitting one, and
Sure.
I know their rep, he comes all the meetings now.
Okay, good.
I'll start scheduling the meeting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Fabulous. Okay, done with new business report, sewer authority mid-coast side meetings.
I got one.
That's me and Rick. Keisha returned from vacation. We have engaged a fellow named Dan Child as an advisor to, help deal with the transition of getting a new manager for Sam, and also dealing with some points of discussion and internal issues. He's going to be giving us a report on what he envisions the process to be on August 26th. Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on at Sam. While Keishan was gone, there were no
We
major
just had the
breaks.
one item, really only one item, which was they awarded a contract for the blower replacement project,
Right, which was,
81K, and it was approved unanimously in about 10 seconds.
that's it. So that's all there is for Sam. Mid-Coast Council, the meeting last night was canceled. CSDA and LAFCO, why don't we combine them, Rick?
I got a little bit more on CSDA. LAFCO, we kind of talked about, I think, at the last meeting anyway. The interesting presentation, well, two things. Martha Poyadas, who's the executive director, showed up and just reminded everybody about these two documents we just discussed. What was interesting is we always have a speaker, and they brought in, and I don't have Brent Turner's title, but it was about election security. Just in general, if you ever felt secure about election security, don't be. It seems like the lead agencies who are doing something are New Hampshire is trying something, San Francisco is trying something. The basic tenets of what they're trying to move to is open source code, so everybody can look at it.
Well, that's what Brent's been pushing.
Yeah, so.
But the government, San Mateo County went for private company.
Yes, the private companies are in mad cash sales because they know they're going to be gone. So San Mateo County is changing nothing between now and the major election. They're looking at stuff. The goal is open source software that everybody can look at so you can see if there was a problem. and back up with paper ballots, in case you have to do recounts and stuff like that. They're encouraging people, if you print out a ballot, look at the ballot that you just printed before you stick it in the machine.
Purple fingers.
And the other part is, the security issue isn't necessarily while you're doing your balloting. All the ballots and all the machines eventually are fed into major vote counters, and that's the problem, where everything is accumulated and counted and stuff like that.
The other problem is finding boxes of ballots floating in the bay
Afterwards, just
or in
floating around.
people's trunk when they're needed.
So there seems to be an effort, he mentioned, to give special attention in 2020 to important states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, to make sure there is nothing there. But nationwide, there are probably minimal changes from all the disasters we had last time. So it's going to be a long-term effort. People don't want to spend the money to switch out all their machines. So
It's not clear right now that
what
anyone has anything of sufficient quality to make that worthwhile. On the printed ballots, the best proposals so far are along the lines of manually printed ballots. That, like you mentioned, that you can touch and verify for yourself. I'll give you some idea. It just happens. But in the last election, the night of the election, I was looking at the results for the race that I was in, and the numbers didn't change for 3 hours from the time the polls closed and they reported the absentee ballots that they had counted up to that point. And I kept calling every half hour. It's like, the numbers haven't changed. And the numbers were like, 200 ballots cast. And, it's well below our typical number. And speaking to staff and waiting, they're like, oh, it'll be in the next, we report every 30 minutes. So it'll be in the next batch. And so every 30 minutes I'm calling them back. You just reported new numbers for everybody else, but this race, there's nothing new. And it's just a whole lot of people working really hard, doing their dead level best under a lot of pressure. Finally, around 11:30, I called them and I said, look, let me speak to the registrar because something's going on. They took a few extra minutes, went and looked, and because of an issue that had come up where we had raised a protest during the election, the registrar had said, with this race, let's be extra careful with it. So they had set the ballots aside and forgotten about them. That's just what you get with benign neglect. To really get to where we have systems that we're going to be able to rely on, they should have auditable numbers from all of the activity so that at any given point they know if they've seen the ballots. But we've got a long way to go to where we have reliable, repeatable, secure processes. And all of this notion of you're going to do it on a touch screen.
Well, the touch screens, this guy commented when he was voting, touch screens themselves seem to be a technical problem.
Well, but
he
everything about
punches his vote.
Yeah.
He would happen to be a Democrat. And when he looked at the result on the screen, it's the Republican guy. And he backs up, hits the Dem guy again. It goes to the Republican guy again. He said the third time he did it, it finally registered his vote as the Democrat.
Yeah, that's often an issue with
This could be
touchscreen
the touch
calibration,
screen
but it
itself,
could also
yeah.
be that somebody's hacked it. And
Yeah. So there's
all of the voting machines
Right.
at the hacker conferences are routinely compromised, usually in under 3 minutes.
Okay, so we're done with CSDA and LAFCO. Attorney's report.
No attorney's report.
And director's report. Nothing to report. General manager's report.
Nothing in addition to that.
Okay, future agendas, collections contract status, and action minutes review. And we're going to, because Eric is not here, we will move the, get the right word, midterm public employee performance evaluation to our next meeting. And so now we will convene in closed session. And there will be, we won't need the camera to